Hi, everyone, and welcome to Katie Couric. Today, a 5-time Emmy winner who may soon add a Tony to his crowded mantle. You may know him as Dr. Frasier Crane, but this season, Broadway audiences are seeing a very different side of Kelsey Grammer as George in La Cage aux Folles. And as always, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Dove. Kelsey Grammer, Kelsey, it's so nice to see
Katie.
you.
It's good to see you.
Full disclosure, I love this show.
Thank you.
I mean, who doesn't love this show? I felt when I went to see you, the audience just had one collective grin on their faces. It does just kind of fill you with happiness, and everyone's clapping at the end.
It's an amazing experience. It really, I've never been in a theater experience that has that celebratory vibration about it. A kind of it almost is an explosion of cheer, you know, and happiness when, honestly, when Albana and I kiss. At the end, I mean, you can feel this sort of visceral woo happen, and it carries through the curtain call, and it's just an uplifting, magnificent relationship, a love story that, I mean, I tear up when I speak about it now.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Just because?
I just love these two. It's funny, you know. I mean, it's certainly had its share of controversy, this play and then this musical starting in the 80s.
Well, it was written, I guess, in 1973 in France, right? The original play?
Right, the movie.
The original movie.
The movie was originally 73, I think.
Oh, okay, but it was based on a play, was it not?
I thought it went the other way around.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
I thought it was a play
I could be
than a
wrong.
movie. You could be wrong, and so could I. But nonetheless, it's been done a bunch of times.
Right. And it's always it's their love that I think is what sustains it. I mean, it had a kind of an ill-fated run 5 years ago, which didn't quite, I guess, hit it. You know.
Well, I guess I read the reviews, and this production is getting stellar reviews, which is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll feel so validated when you really like a play, and then if you read a negative review, you're like, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
You know, I'm not sophisticated enough.
Yeah.
But the reviews of this, while they were wonderful, but I guess they said about the previous production 5 or 6 years ago, it was almost too over the top, too garish, not kind of scaled down enough. And this, I think Ben Brantley said in the Times, is just a bit seedier, a bit less.
Right, a dash shabby.
Yeah.
Which I think is what it would be.
Right.
I mean, I've visited Saint-Tropez. It's a lovely place, but it's not flashy. It's not glamorous necessarily. I mean, it is when you get on a big yacht, maybe, but the day-to-day denizens of Saint-Tropez, I don't think actually walk around in, you know, high dudgeon all the time. They're kind of workmen, decent people trying to struggle through their way, and I think it's the right tone for the show to be just a bit worn on the edges and a little thrown together, and of course the casuals look good.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, as someone said, no one, by the way, why do their corsets keep falling down? Because I kept seeing their nipples.
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, I don't think you're not supposed to see their nipples because you're supposed to believe.
It's obviously a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously they decided, well, let's let them see how great the boys look too.
Yeah, I mean, they're amazing. Those dancers
incredible.
are absolutely extraordinary. And I think it was nice that they all got to have sort of their own personalities on stage, and that they kind of rounded out the characters. They weren't just dance girls, if you will.
I think of the club as George's home for wayward girls, basically. You know, that he has extended his sphere to a family outside of just the three of the core family, the core relationship.
Why don't we take a look at a clip from the show? This is when you are singing with your son. Look over there, because George, basically, you are telling your son not to be ashamed of Albana, who raised him like a parent, but he doesn't want his fiancée and her family to know.
He's afraid she won't be able to handle the truth.
That Jean-Michel has two daddies, if you will, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, let's take a look.
How often does somebody sense that you need them without being told?
Never seen this.
When you have a hurt in your heart, you're too proud to disclose. Look over there. Look over there. Somebody always knows.
Which is a great number. There's so many great songs here. I was going to read.
It's a great number. I'm singing it much better now.
I thought that sounded pretty good. So let me read some of the reviews. Hilton Als of The New Yorker says, Kelsey Grammer's George is a paragon of restraint and compassion. Ben Brantley calls your performance cool and modest with its own sneaky charm. What was the role like to take on? Because I wondered as I watched you, I thought you were amazing. Then I thought, I wonder if Kelsey in some ways wishes he could play Albin, which is so theatrical.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, we're all drawn to that, the big flashy part. But what's funny is I originally talked to them and said, I'll play it for a while, and I'll switch to Albin when Doug has to go home. But I've changed my mind about it. After I started to play George, I really fell in love with him because he's the romantic in it. He's the one that actually puts up with all the stuff and sustains and hangs in and all the histrionics and all the anger and all the flourishes and all the crises that arise. George handles them because he loves this person.
At first, he's not that romantic. At first, you kind of feel like he's a little bit hard and
he's got a
over
show
it
to
all.
do.
But no, as the show progresses, you're right. He is sort of the.
You'll find out that this man just adores this woman. Man, whatever their partnership consists of. They clearly are advanced role players.
Yeah.
But they are two souls that are joined in a way that's extraordinary. And what I've started out saying, and I didn't quite get to it, is that in our world and our life together and the lives we know of our friends, honestly, this relationship is probably more traditional than almost any we really know. I mean, I don't know a lot of families that really stay together that long. I don't know a lot of husband-wife teams or teams at all that sustain a love for 20 years and remain in love. I mean, it's an extraordinary story these two have. And it's the one I think we all dream of.
I thought Douglas Hodge was remarkable
He's
in the role.
extraordinary in it. It's
When
an
he
astounding
sings at the end of the
performance.
first act, I am what I am, and in a very melodramatic but beautiful way, kind of a very stirring rendition. The whole audience is completely captivated.
Absolutely.
Did you know him before the show?
No, we just met in London. I flew over to see the show in London, watched his performance, and of course, I mean, I honestly thought, this guy's like he's like a semi driving through traffic, It's like just running over hybrids. There was a cast of people that were sort of just hanging on for dear life because his performance was so extraordinary. But when we met, we started talking about what the dynamic of this relationship is, and I said, honestly, this guy George he's a formidable male energy in this relationship that they have. And Doug sort of responded to that, and he realized, well, that gives me, because he was bigger than the fella playing George in London. And so it changed the dynamic a lot. In this way, he actually was able to physically sense that he could kind of surrender a little bit of that physical power to the more powerful guy, which, is George. And it became an interesting relationship.
We've got some Twitter questions. Emmanuel tweeted us and said, do you feel that television stardom makes it easier for you to connect with the audience in the theater? I would think not necessarily.
It might make it easier to get people into the theater.
Right. Well, that's
Because,
true. A lot of these Broadway shows do very well when they have someone like Hugh Jackman
Well, there's
performing.
a business model, I mean, you got to pay attention to it. It's expensive to put a show on, and if you can guarantee that you might, or at least you have an additional asset that might get more people in the seats, it's bound to be a help. So I think that's helpful for theater, but that moment of connection is up to the performance in that audience.
And do you think La Cage aux Folles, this production without you, could have also kind of resonated? Maybe not, as you said, gotten as many people in the seats, but...
Well, honestly, business-wise, it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in it.
Really?
So
You're kind of the hook.
Yeah.
One other thing I thought about, Kelsey, when I was watching this play is I thought, I know you're pretty politically fairly conservative, and you can maybe sort of explain your political views for us so I'm not mistaken. And I wonder,
I love you for that.
No, I want you to. And I thought, does this jive with where Kelsey is politically? Because, it's obviously very pro-gay, very, I would say, pro-gay marriage. Yeah. And I wondered, do you consider yourself a fiscal conservative, a social conservative? How would you describe your political views?
Honestly, I'm probably conservative in terms of the way I approach most things. I'm not quick to judge. I will not make a judgment without knowledge. These are these are assets and attributes I label as conservative attributes, and so that's why I label myself a conservative. I am fiscally certainly conservative.
Because you're a Republican.
I'm a Republican.
Right?
Yeah. I just think that reflects more of my worldview than the other side, which is big government to me is a very scary thing, and I don't like people telling me how I'm supposed to think or live. I just resent it, and I am the biggest anti-authoritarian twit that lives. And honestly, in the Republican Party, I feel more at home because I like having an opinion that maybe differs. Certainly living in Hollywood, I mean,
do you feel
how
like
could I ever be?
Do you feel like it? Do you ever feel penalized for your political views in Hollywood?
Well, I think more than it's more than a feeling, but I mean, it's worth it. I mean, I'm a human being. That's more important to me than being an actor.
What about social issues?
Social issues,
like
though, here,
gay
for
marriage,
instance,
abortion, whatever.
I think abortion is just as sad as anything that can happen to somebody. But I do think choice is a person's. I think it's the law of the land. I don't think it should be repealed, or I don't think it should even deserve a challenge in court. I think the choice is a sad choice, mostly. And most of the people I know that make that choice are never happy about it. And so I rely on the human spirit to make its own decisions about that sort of thing. And I think that's their right. I don't care for language that diminishes the act. I don't like phrases like reproductive rights. I mean, everybody's got reproductive rights. I don't care for phrases like privacy rights. I mean, I think you have a right to choice, but at some point there's a place where does a fetus have any kind of rights too? I don't know. The Constitution, I mean, the Declaration of Independence is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, life's the first word in there.
And you believe it begins at conception?
Well, I've had 2 children that I saw when they were 2 cells old. So it changed it shifted me a bit.
What about gay marriage?
Gay marriage I support. I also support, though, somebody's religious view to think, oh, men and women should marry. I don't think that's a challenge to our society or to our ability to function and love one another that certain religious people might think a different way than we do. Our country's supposed to be about religious freedom, not about penalizing people that think differently than we do. And so I get very confused about where the lines are drawn about, what's conservative and what's liberal. Because honestly, to me, I'm a liberal. I embrace so many different ways of living and thought and thinking and creative, adaptive ways of making business models work and of working out our personal lives. And I don't support government telling me how I'm supposed to do it. And so I don't know. I have so many liberal friends now that actually cannot look on a person that differs with their opinion with anything but rage, and I think that's unfortunate.
And don't you think it's the other way around as well?
I just haven't experienced this as much.
Yeah.
My own experience, I don't experience it. I haven't seen it as much.
Because of your milieu and where you are.
Yeah, where I am.
You're surrounded by.
Yeah. No one ever really offers up that kind of vitriol in my circle of friends that call themselves conservative. Now, maybe I live just right of center, and maybe that's where most of my collective friends are. But there certainly are extremes on both ends that I think are both equally out of line. But.
Let me ask you about this. You're, I guess, backing something called Right TV. Sorry, I've had a sore throat.
Oh, I'm invested in this thing called Right Network.
Right Network. Tell us about that.
It's just a fledgling company that just basically is. It's a group of people that wanted to start branding themselves rather than being branded by the opposition.
And it
like those of us who live right of center, to get our story out in a way that, we want to think of ourselves and actually present ourselves instead of allowing somebody else to define what that is.
Well, enough about politics.
Okay, no, it's okay.
We can. So let's talk about Frasier. Do you miss doing that show?
Yeah, I do. I loved playing him. He was so much fun.
Do you keep up with the cast?
Well, David Hyde Pierce and John. I keep in touch with John, and Jane and Perry live. Really, I mean, I could throw a rock and hit their homes.
Yeah.
So, it's we all stay in touch. There's a sort of proximity issue about our lives in L.A., but we do sit down to dinner once in a while and actually have, society together.
And why do you, I guess I know the answer to this, but I'm just curious if you would agree with sort of the conventional wisdom about why that show was so popular.
Well, I think it was it's kind of a oneer, which is very interesting, which keeps it authentic and original, and I don't think they've ever duplicated it. And I'm not sure anybody could or would want to now.
You mean the premise of the show?
Yeah,
and
we fell in just the right place in terms of society and everything else that allowed us to have that kind of expression and have it be successful at the same time. We were lucky to be critically acclaimed and also have a pretty decent audience. The show is about love, which is, you know, that's what I do. I try to make shows about love and make the most loving decisions. And that's why, you know, that's why I'm politically who I am. So I think you got to go with the love. Deciding what the most loving decision is where people get into confusion. There's a lot of knee-jerk in politics.
Yeah.
But in our show, it was about the love of two brothers, and the unique qualities that they shared, that were shared with their father. Everybody always said to me, "How did those kids come from that father?" That was the most popular question, and I always said to them, "They're a complete product of that father. They have big opinions. They are rigid in their thinking, but they are also very compassionate, and they're very, very dedicated to doing the right thing." And that's what I loved about all of them, because they're human at the same time. Doing the right thing is very hard. And so they were tortured and frustrated and sexually, you know, as twisted as they could be. And it was a festival to play them. They were tick-ridden devils throughout. And that's what I really enjoyed about them.
Rumor has it that John Lithgow was first offered the role of Frasier in Cheers.
Yes.
And he turned it down. Thank you, God,
I
right?
I think so. He did the right thing.
Yeah. Do you ever think about, gosh, what would my life be like if Cheers hadn't come along?
Sure. Yeah, I think about it all the time. I mean, I don't regret it. I just wonder where I'd be. And what's funny is I think I probably would have just stayed in New York. I loved being an actor here, and that's all I ever wanted to be.
You went to Juilliard?
Yeah, Juilliard, got a little formal training, and then they kicked me out. And, then, and a theater life was really all I reached for. That's really all I wanted. But certainly what came along for the ride with Cheers and Frasier. Cheers, where we met.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
many years ago. And
I had a little role, a little
yeah,
brief cameo.
It's so delightful to meet you then. And it just changed my life. It took my life to a bigger scope than I had anticipated, but one that I embraced.
Is that sometimes destabilizing?
Well, surely I went through my destabilizing elements. You know, I mean, I was trying to compromise, you know, trying to figure out how to come to terms with the fact that I had all this tragedy in my life, and I had all this fame, and it's, you know, do I deserve this nonsense?
And
you
you
go
went
through
through your personal
it was
psychodrama.
sort of a 20-year mourning period that I, you know, finally come out the other end, and it's a good journey.
And you were in that car accident, which kind of shook you into.
Well, it was a great moment to have snap out of it. You know, that was a snap out of it moment, and it was good.
I know that you've talked about this, but I think about this too when I see you and I watch you perform, because you have had a lot of tragedy in your life. You lost your dad and your sister, both in very violent ways. And, you know, this is sort of a trite question, but how did those experiences, Kelsey, change you, and how did they impact the man you are today?
No, it's a good question. It may not be an easy answer, but certainly it leveled my life, is what it did when I was 18. 20. My sister was 18. It flattened all the things I had. It took them out. Faith, peace, joy, all those things disappeared from me, and I felt replete with them before these events took place. And yet, what it helped me to discover was a tenacity and a longing for understanding where we belong in the universe that made it a kind of a visceral, real, daily battle for me as a young man. And I took some very bad turns, but I took a few good ones too. And in the end, it reconnected me with my sense of faith, with God, and even with my sister. And my dad I didn't really know that well, but my sister was devastating. And it's interesting. I recently wrote a petition basically to the parole board in Colorado not to free the man that killed my sister, one of 3. And it made me think about a lot of things. And I forgive him, but they killed 7 people.
These 3 men.
Yeah, and there's a legacy of tragedy that is a life sentence for everybody else. And they're asking to basically go on with their lives, which I think is, you know, I understand why they'd want to. But what the guy blew it was, in his filing for parole, he basically said that he really wasn't involved. And knowing that, knowing as I do about 12-step programs and all that kind of stuff, you can't actually move on until you acknowledge what you've done. And the act that they committed, simply just on my sister alone, was so conscious and so clearly violent and so focused that to pretend, even 30 years later, that you weren't really part of it, I'm not inclined to ask that man for his freedom or to grant it. I think he deserves to die in prison. It's that simple.
Do you believe in capital punishment?
Well, I don't know if I believe in it, because I have one issue. If one innocent man were killed, then I would be against it. So I have issues about that. But I'm very comfortable with life in prison.
You must think about your sister a lot. Do you wonder, gosh,
All the time.
would she like this play? What would she think of my success?
You know what? She's with me all the time. And she's just there.
Gee, how do we move on from this conversation? This is pretty heavy stuff. I appreciate you being so forthright and sharing, because I know it's difficult. So how long will this, do you have any specific time that you're going to be playing this role on Broadway? Are you gonna...
I'm going until February 15th. And what I've done is, we started on this a while back, so this is all sort of peripatetic. And Doug, I've asked Doug to stay.
I like that word, peripatetic.
I love that word.
Yeah, me too. Perspicacity is another good one.
Perspicacity, big one. All the P words.
Yeah. Anyway, so you've asked him to stay on?
I've almost begged him to, honestly, and then we're trying to make it happen so that we can kind of do it for a year. You know, have this sort of, you know, like sort of Gene Barry and George Hearn had. You know, we've left our mark on this play, this place in theater history, whatever it might be. I mean, you don't get moments like this very often. And this relationship, I've never had so much fun on stage with anybody in my life. And I think they're a remarkable couple. And it's in no small part because the connection we have is remarkable. And you don't want to let go of that, you know. And so I love this thing we have. And so February 15th, maybe we'll both go. And I might come back and play Al Ben as a teaser, a 3-month thing.
Yeah, just
you know,
for
Kelsey's
fun.
back, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, because that challenge does still, you know, you still go, ooh, that would be really fun to try.
Yeah. Are you sort of plotting what you're going to do next after this? I know you're going to obviously, in the immediate future, be a part of the Tonys. You were nominated for a Tony, which is great. Is that a big thrill
Doug's
for
gonna
you,
get
by the
it.
way? You think he will?
Yeah, I think he should.
Yeah, that's
some people are
generous
saying they
of
might
you.
give it to both of us, but I mean, and you know, okay, it is a two-hander, honestly, but his role is so magnificent. I mean, it's so much fun. I wouldn't blame them, and I'll be fine with it. I've had my share of awards.
What are you going to do after this? Do you have any idea?
Afterward, maybe another play. You know, we'll see. I really like being here. I'm not sure the landscape of
Los
television
Angeles?
has a place for me anymore.
Oh, well, I don't know.
We'll see. But I miss Malibu a little bit. I mostly miss the kids. You know? I mean,
But they're going to be coming here for the
thriving,
summer.
They're coming, so you know the family thing.
How old are the
happens.
kids now? Mason is
8 and 5.
Wow,
Mason's
those
8.
are fun
Jude's
ages.
5. Spencer's 26 and Greer's 18. Greer's going to USC next year. So
That's
I
nice.
still don't know how she got in.
That's nice. We'll try to edit that out in
No, I
case
know.
she watches
She'll
this.
probably say, "Oh dear God."
All right, I'm going to do a really quick question. Do you eat jelly beans during the performance? Is that true?
I have, yeah.
Yeah?
God,
It just gives
we
you a
have
little.
spies.
Yeah, we did our research here, didn't we, Kelsey?
Someone's gonna-
Just a
some
little
heads
sugar
are gonna
shock.
roll.
Sugar shock. And then you write people back on your Twitter page?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, it's me
Do you
on
ever
Twitter.
write, when people are rude, do you ever write rude things back?
No, but I always embrace their rudeness.
You do?
And I
How do you
confront
embrace
it.
rudeness?
I say, you know what? I'm always delighted to hear from one of the haters.
Is that what you say?
Thank you. Great to know your position. You know, you're welcome to actually try to have some real dialogue.
Wow, that's good.
I would say, come on, let's go.
Really? Bring it
Yeah,
on?
Yeah.
All right. All right, let me ask you, we're going to do a quick name game. Bebe Neuwirth.
Lilith.
Yeah, I know. What do you think of her?
I love her.
Yeah, she's in the Addams
fantastic.
Family. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen the Addams Family.
Now, that didn't get great reviews and hasn't been so totally embraced. What did you think of it?
To parrot what Nathan Lane himself said. He said, the Addams Family, which was not well received in some circles, like the Earth. I thought that was very, very touching.
That's funny. All right, Newt Gingrich.
I don't really know Newt Gingrich, and I thought Contract with America was a great idea, and I think it actually helped on a lot of levels. But then, the battle lines got drawn, and the same old nonsense war was waged, and it was a war of words and a war of accusation, and the Clintons against Newt and Newt against the Clintons, and you savage each other, and Newt came out on the losing side of that.
Washington, D.C.
A mess.
Do you think there's a place for moderates in either party, and room for compromise?
Well, I think there has to be eventually, but I mean, honestly, it's very, very hard when there are such clear choices at this point. It's how do you say, yeah, spend $3 trillion? How do you say it? So okay, I guess it's going to be a while.
President Obama.
I admire him. I don't like his policies.
And
some of his policies.
The policies.
I think some are okay. I think the health care idea is a great idea. A 2,000-page bill is clearly a crime. It's clearly criminal on some level. I mean, I don't even know how you get 4 good ideas and get more than maybe 14 pages. I'll give you 40. All right, so maybe 40 pages. I don't know where 2,000 came from.
What policies do you disagree with him on, other than the length of the health care legislation?
Oh, well, it's not about the length. It's about the sequence.
Yeah.
It's about the stuff that's in it. It's about the college loans coming into the health care bill. I don't understand how that piggybacks with that. Now, maybe that's a Congress problem, and that's a legislative problem, but I don't understand how that comes along for the ride. I just don't. Other than that, $1 trillion of walking around money, I just didn't get that.
Just too much,
I just
too
didn't
much
get
government
it.
spending.
I mean, the only thing I've seen is any evidence of the American Recovery Act. There are a couple of signs in California. So some sign company's doing pretty well.
And finally, Sideshow Bob.
Sideshow Bob, a remarkable sociopathic mind.
Did you have fun doing that?
Always fun.
Yeah.
Because I'm remarkably sociopathic myself.
Well, you're always fun to talk to, and I'm
Thanks,
just so
Katie.
happy for your success on Broadway. So glad. I mean, does it really matter that the reviews are good? It does, doesn't it? Because it brings more people to the
it does
theater.
encourage people to come. I mean, it reflects well on the production. I can certainly sustain myself through awful reviews, but
But those,
it's
they
just not
sting,
as
don't
much
they?
fun.
Even.
Well, that's why I try not to read them.
Yeah.
But there's always a good friend that calls and says, "Oh,
Oh, I'm really
so sorry."
Don't you hate those good friends?
I've got fewer and fewer, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, I'm really thrilled for your success, and I
Thanks,
think
Katie.
you're terrific in this play, and in everything you do, personally.
Likewise.
So thank you so much for coming in, Kelsey. Good to see you. And you can catch, by the way, Kelsey on the Tony Awards on CBS Sunday, June 13th. And thanks to all of you tweeted questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to that many. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @KatieCouric. And now stay tuned for a message from our sponsor, Dove.